Hey guys, on today's episode, we're heading down to Doylestown, Pennsylvania. My buddy Matt, his uncle Rod, has a 1991 240 Volvo Wagon. Unbelievable. We love these cars. It's been sitting there for like 10, 12 years. It's got mold, it's got all kinds of stuff in it. We're gonna pull that out, get it cleaned up, but more importantly, we're gonna try to get this thing running and hopefully get it sold and donate the funds to an amazing charity. We got a lot going on in this episode today on Drive and Protect. Hey guys,
How you doing?
Hi.
Hey, when I arrived at the Volvo's resting spot for the last 15 years or so, I met up with Rod and his wife Sherry, as well as my buddy Matt and Craig, who called me about saving the old wagon and getting her to a new home. At first sight, this was extremely rough. Lots of lichen, black mold on the inside, crushed windshield, and more than a few dings and dents. So I wanted to learn a bit more about how the 240 ended up here for so long.
We have a 1991 240 model Volvo wagon. They call it a 245 because of the 5 doors. It's been sitting here since 2007. I bought it for my son because he needed a car that could, get around town, and then he got a job where he needed to drive 100 miles a day, and I told him the 240 wasn't going to do it. So he went and got a Prius. So it's been sitting here ever since.
So what's the plan for it now? What's your dream for this?
I'd like to see it go somewhere, and because they're a classic, someone fix it up. I just don't have the ambition or desire to dive into it anymore. It's been too many years since I twisted a wrench. Tied a canoe on the top of it and took it around up to the lakes to go canoeing.
And that's what are those straps for?
That's to hold the canoe.
No kidding. And then what happened to the windshield?
My grandson decided he wanted to break it when we weren't here, and he broke it. What he did to use it, or what he hit it with, he said it took 8 times. he said a branch fell on it, but I said no, they don't break that easy.
Yeah.
So he finally owned up to it.
Right on time, the father and son team from Fritz Towing arrived. John and Johnny backed all the way down the driveway to pull the back wheels of the 240 out of the dirt. As they pulled the car out, thankfully the wheels weren't locked up. Sometimes they get locked up, which makes detailing and moving it later on such a pain in the butt. So we were in business at this point, and once everything was secure on the flatbed, we headed over to Matt's house to bring Rod's wagon back to life. The Volvo 200 series, which of course is the 240 and the 260 models, were introduced in late 1974 and ended in 1993 with a production run just shy of about 3 million cars produced in 19 years. The 200 series had the 2-door coupe, the 4-door sedan, and this one here, which is a 5-door station wagon with a rear-wheel 4-speed automatic, and the Volvo's 2.3-liter B230 inline 4 with a whopping 114 horsepower. Now, a similar one, in of course a different color and clearly in way better shape than this one, sold on Bring a Trailer for $8,800 recently, just for some perspective on this car. Now, the Volvo community is strong and their love of wagons is even stronger, so I'm sure we'll find a good home and help a great charity in the process. With the wagon now dumped in Matt's driveway and out of the wooded area, we got a better idea of just how much of a hot mess this thing was. It had mud on it, had mold, and of course, a ton of lichen. Check out the straps on the front though. This thing is so Volvo station wagon, it's not even funny. I can see this thing barreling down the road with a kayak on its long roof. Absolutely love it, so I'm pretty pumped. Based on the smell, my guess is the carpets are filled with moisture from blocked drains combined with years of mouse urine. Let's just say it is unbelievably ripe inside. So because of that, we have to pull everything out so that we can rip the carpets and the cushions out and throw them away.
That's the most expensive thing in this car.
Just about then, reinforcements arrived from the Rebuild Rescue Team. You remember Harrison and Jake when we did that 401 rescue? Absolutely insane plane. Check it out. There's a link above. After seeing how much needed to be done on the Volvo, they were a sight for sore eyes for sure. Glad to have their help on this one. So step one with a disaster like this is to drop the sodium chloride tablet inside and give it about 20 minutes to do its thing to make it safer for us to get inside even with masks on. While that was percolating on the inside, Matt set up his home pressure washer to blow off as much junk as possible in round 1 of cleaning, which is incredibly cathartic to watch, so enjoy. Using the pressure washer is the easiest way to remove lichen from paint quickly. Lichen tends to grow in moist, sunny areas, but ironically, its growth is actually hindered by automobile pollution because they grow and thrive by absorbing nutrients from the air and, of course, water droplets, which those water droplets become contaminated by exhaust fumes. So every time I see lichen growing on a car, I like to think they're sort of fighting back to reclaim their territory. To get the hood open, Matt and Craig used PB Blaster on the springs just to make sure nothing popped, and she opened up with no problem. Inside, the inline 4 became a huge home for mice, and I saw one off camera sort of running around and jumped into the firewall while we were cleaning later on, but we didn't get it on film. Now, the goal here is just to blow out as much as possible before we could get Matt's friend Pete to show up and help us figure out what this thing needs to get the engine to turn over, as it's likely that we're going to get a higher donation if the engine isn't seized. While the pounds of mud, leaves, and lichen are being removed, I filled up the wash bucket with foam and boost, and Brute was put into the wheel bucket along with any and all brushes we had on hand. Likewise, I filled Matt's foamer with Brute and foam.
I don't normally do it like this.
Yeah.
I take it to the kitchen sink.
All right, well, thanks for making me do it the hard way. Next, I covered every seam and seal in soap to give it as much lubrication for the upcoming scrub down. With buckets and brushes in hand, we scrubbed everything to lift the remaining stubborn junk. Now, this is not what I would consider a traditional wash. At best, it's an aggressive wash, but obviously it's completely necessary with that much junk attached to the paint. Afterwards, I power washed once again, and even more and more mud came out of areas we already cleaned. It's just crazy to see how much junk is held in all the seams. Besides the act of actually vacuuming, which I really enjoy, this is my favorite part of bringing a car back to life. Not only do you get to see what it could look like after it's being polished, meaning with all the water running on it, but you do feel the car sort of say, ah, as you're doing it. So I love this part. Just about then, Matt's friend Pete arrived in his orange 1973 Volvo 1800 ES. Absolutely stunning car. His goal was to diagnose what we may need to do to get this 240 possibly running and hopefully sold.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey.
Need a hand?
Hey, nice to see you, man.
What's going on?
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
What do we need to look at first?
We're gonna make sure the engine turns. Number one, that's easy. Gonna hook up a battery pack and see if we got any fuel, and then
Potentially think you can get it started?
I think we're gonna get this thing started.
With his tools in hand, step one is just to see if the motor was locked up, meaning seized. And luckily enough, it wasn't, so we can move forward by pulling the old battery and hooking up a jumper box. I hear things.
It's alive.
It's alive. Be forewarned, it's gross. Yeah, I know, right? Lights are going on. This is
God
good.
bless you guys.
Yes.
All right, nothing from the starter. So Volvo has this little terminal here that you can put power to. So it appears the starter's frozen.
How can you tell?
Well, this guy right here is specific to Volvo. This guy, if you put power there, which this guy does, and it doesn't start, then the starter is not working.
Now what, doctor?
Basically, we hit it with a hammer.
Literally?
Yeah,
Literally?
actually hit it with a hammer. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what we're gonna do.
Where is the starter?
Got a hammer? And if it was a stick shift, I'd make us roll it down the hill.
As he was actually about to do it, it just worked without him even tapping it. We have no idea why, but it was good
Go
karma.
ahead. Look what I did.
Oh!
So there is that.
After a few more tries with starting fluid, you could tell it just wanted to go, but it just couldn't get over that hump. It just couldn't start. It was close though.
Even just like a blah, 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 like once.
While Pete was trying to figure out what was causing that last little bit to not start, we borrowed him just to help us remove the rear seat and the very stuck rear hatch while the boys removed the front buckets.
Oh, have fun, guys.
And it stinks so bad in the mouth.
Oh. Ready? Oh!
You sure there's no big switch that says on and off and it's on the off position?
That would be sweet.
Uh,
Yeah, that'll do it. That's the wire to the fuel pump.
What's wrong with
it? Chewed, peed on, pooped on. Seen better days.
The wires for the fuel pump are actually eaten or chewed up by the mice.
So
There's our culprit. As we were vacuuming up the pounds and pounds of acorns, it was my lucky day. I found a $25 casino chip under the seat. Who knows how long that's been there? Things were looking up. With round one of vacuuming done, we decided to pull the carpets because the smell was just overwhelming in the car, and the top carpet was pretty wet, which usually means the cushion underneath is likely soaked as well.
Okay, if you're asking yourself why we're removing the carpets, here's the reason. You see, this is the top carpet, and what people forget is this is the cushion. Look at the urine coming out right there, and the moisture. This is toast, so all of this has to be thrown away. This is soaked with urine. Look at that. That's really gross. So we gotta remove it.
After a few more bolts and razor blades, the carpet came out and went directly into the trash.
Ugh. That's the most expensive thing in this car.
Next, Craig wet vac the remaining moisture, acorns, and of course the hidden spots under the carpet that we couldn't get to earlier, while Jake and Harrison worked on scrubbing the seats with lather. Now, because the front windshield was crushed a few years earlier, shards of glass just got embedded in the front seats and a thin sliver stuck in Harrison's hand. So we were a man down until Rod saved the day and helped remove the door panels to check behind them for any more mouse houses. At this point in the detailing process, all hands were on deck to get the wagon ready for its new home. We were all scrubbing the seats, and Rod was disassembling the door, Craig was vacuuming and cleaning the door jambs, and Pete, of course, was fighting the engine. But just about then, like a gladiator wounded in battle, Harrison stitched himself up while biting the proverbial wooden stick and got himself back into the game. I'm totally kidding. He just put a Band-Aid on and started scrubbing the seats. 2 seconds later, he was fine.
Back. It's okay.
Once the steamer was ready, we cleaned everything again, including the incredibly gross door handles covered in mouse poo. The before and after was huge. The first thing you do is spray lather, work the cleaner in with a brush, then use the steamer, which of course has the heat, to speed up the cleaning process. And then once everything's done, scoop up the lifted gunk before it dries on the material. That's very important. Back out in front on the engine, the doctor had his diagnosis of what the 240 needs and its current value as it sits today.
All right, Pete, what are we looking at?
Well, it's not great, but
No?
it's not terrible.
Okay.
Got 2 dead fuel pumps. Wiring's a little all messed up.
Okay.
You have no spark. So this thing's not running today,
Okay.
but I think it's running.
All right. Do you know anybody that might be interested in this?
I know a guy.
Do you?
That guy might be me. Might be my buddy.
Please.
I'm not sure. But me and my friend, we used to actually race one of these. We have a full race engine, transmission, suspension for this
Ready to go.
at our shop, yeah. So,
Okay.
like for me, it's worth it. You guys have the interior half out.
I have a question for you. Instead of doing some sort of transaction between you and I, would you be able to make a donation for me?
Yeah.
To a charity?
Happily.
Okay.
What's the charity?
Ivy Hill Equestrian Center. It's up above Peace Valley Park.
Beautiful. Happy
Okay.
to do that.
What are you thinking? You know Volvo's better than me, so
Well,
what are you thinking in terms of?
it's a good body.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
yeah.
a really beautiful
Yeah.
body. let's say 1,200. Deal?
That's a deal, man.
All right.
Thank
cool.
you.
All right.
Thank
Got
you
it.
very
I got it at
much.
240.
Yeah.
New one comes to the family.
The Ivy Hill Therapeutic Equestrian Center provides equine assisted services to all individuals to prompt independence and confidence. This project is especially near and dear to Matt's heart as one of his 2 daughters, Charlotte, has cerebral palsy, and Ivy Hill has been a wonderful source of hope for Matt and his family. So everyone helping on this project had a bit of extra motivation to help find a new home for the 240 and donate the funds to support an organization that helps a fellow detailer and his family. With the car now off to a new home in the morning and 100% of the proceeds going to a great charity, our end of the deal was to make this as safe as possible for the team back at the Fix Auto Works to get this beast hopefully on the racetrack one day soon, so we had a lot more work to do. Matt cleaned the disgusting steering wheel with lather and an interior brush before steaming and then of course wiping clean. Inside, as I was getting resupplied in the garage, I noticed he keeps track of his oil changes on his garage walls. Like I said, who needs a good old pen and paper when you have walls and chalk? On the exterior, both Craig and I were polishing the paint with a yellow wool pad and polish, and the paint was coming back really well, even just for a one step. With the mold and the poop now gone, Jake coated everything in Amyl Restored disinfectant and let it soak for about 2 minutes. The goal here is for Pete to bring an old, beat up, but safe car back to his collection, and that is exactly what this last process does. Now, at this point in the day, we were really chasing light, so Matt worked on the glass with a scrub pad, which is the best way to do any glass, but especially on ones that have lichen and mold stuck to it. Look at the after. It's just absolutely perfect, so I highly recommend using one of those scrub pads. Anyhow, Jake was re-scrubbing the tires and the wheels, then adding mud tire dressing, while Craig and I finished up the rest of the polishing. Remember, on paint this old and dry, there's going to be a ton of residue, so even having a small compressor to blow out the pad is vital to this type of paint correction and working clean. With the paint now rejuvenated, I focused on the faded black trim by adding Frame Pro trim coat, and the before and after was absolutely amazing. When you talk about detailing, it's really not just about the one thing, meaning the coating or the polish. It's the combination of all those little things together. And to me, standing there in person looking at the Volvo, I would say that the windows being perfectly clean probably added the most pop, then maybe the trim second and the paint third. But looking at them as a whole, meaning standing back a few feet, they add up to more than just the sum of each individual clean part. That's why the last 10% of the detail makes the biggest impact to the customer.
You clean the inside of the fender well?
Dude, crazy. Dude, he's a crazy man. When all was said and done, I added Blush Pro to the paint for some extra pop, and I really just wanted to smell something nice after 10 hours of urine, mold, and everyone's sweat on an 85-degree day. And aside from the home run derby on the front windshield, she cleaned up pretty well. Bright and early the next morning, with the interior reinstalled, John picked up the wagon and we all headed over to Pete's shop to drop off his new car and check out his facility. Inside, of course, was super cool. Sega Genesis, Nintendo, and even an old Atari, all in working shape in his waiting room. But out back, Pete had another surprise, a rare Volvo 850R left behind his shop for a few years and wanted to know if we could save this one too.
Yeah, in terms of detailing, this thing will turn like gloss white.
Seriously?
Oh yeah. In fact, I can even, like, if we have time, I can show you like one spot and you're like,
Even like
all of this, yeah. All this will come right off. What's interesting is this dead stuff is what's protecting the paint.
Afterwards, we helped the team push the 240 back into the work bay. We discussed the plan for getting this thing running again, and he came back with a check for Ivy Hill, and Matt gave him the title. So all's well that ends well.
stoked to have it, dude.
The following day, with a pressurized fuel canister hooked up while he waited on the brand new fuel pump to come in, this happened.
Well done, Pete. Well done.
And that's how you do that.
If you have a Volvo that needs some love, be sure to check out thefixedautoworks.com. I'll have a description down below. Great mechanics, awesome environment, and definitely guys that enjoy their work. Can't wait to see the 240 back on the road once again. Well, guys, there you have it. We saved the 240 from the woods. We got it cleaned up, and more importantly, we got it over to Pete, and he made an awesome donation to Ivy Hill Equestrian. I think I'm turning into a Volvo guy. These things are awesome, especially that one back there. I might be back for an upcoming episode. As always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
No, not me.
Oh, yes. Oh, I haven't seen one of these things in forever. You got the spiders? You smelling it?
The fastest thing's gone in 10 years.